when I was young, there were some things that happened in my life that, well, I call them the three gifts. Gifts that made me realize that God was real and He was a personal God. I look back on them and basically I'm sharing you, sharing with you some of the things that happened to me. When I was in high school, I knew about God. I went to an Adventist academy, Thunderbird Adventist Academy, and I learned about God. I learned about God because I grew up in the church. But when I graduated from high school, it wasn't personal to me. I knew about Him, but it was somebody, like a distant relative that you know about, but you don't have any interaction with. And that's the way it was with me. I was like, God's there, but He's just there. Not really important in my life. When I graduated high school, I had plans to become an engineer. I'd wanted to go to a certain school. And as soon as I got out, I started looking for a job so I can get some money. But that summer, I wasn't able to find any kind of work and any kind of money. Everything that I tried didn't pan out. I mean, I got some jobs, but they weren't the kind of thing that actually paid anything. And they didn't pan out. So summer's coming to a close and I need to do something. So what do I think about? I think about joining the Navy. Well, it didn't quite happen like that. I said, I'm going to go get the GI Bill, really. And to do that, I had to choose a service. I said, forget the Army, forget the Marines. I don't want to get shot at. I don't want to die that early. Thought about the Air Force. And I'm like, is there really any chance for advancement in the Air Force? So I chose the Navy instead. I wanted to see the world, is what I said to myself. And I couldn't do that in the Air Force. So I went to the Navy recruiter. I said, I'm ready to go. Just whenever. He's like, hold on now. You got to do some things first. Got to take your test. Got to do this, do that. I took my test. Turns out I pretty much qualified for any rate except for the nuclear rates. I was about half a point from qualifying nuclear. I'm like, hey, let me take the test again. I know I can do it. He's like, no. That's not necessary. You pretty much qualify for any rate. You don't need to go nuclear, blah, blah. I started looking at the rate sheet and I was like, I don't know what to pick. He says, I'll tell you what. He's like, we got this apprenticeship program. You can go any of one of these three. And if you do, you can be able to see which rate you like. And after that, they'll send you to school. So I like planes. And I chose to be an airman instead of a fireman or a seaman. So I chose to be an airman and went to boot camp, went to ATD, which is right after boot camp, because usually they send you to some place right afterwards. They don't throw you right into the Navy. And then I went into the Navy, and my first duty station was really the first gift, because even though I didn't know it at the time, I in my heart had wanted to be in that squadron. What I mean is that I used to watch a show called Robotech. And in Robotech, they have like the F-14 style planes that go out and fly. Obviously, it's a space show and it's about robots and the planes transformed into robots. But basically, there were like F-14s flying off a carrier deck in space. And the Skull Squadron, which was the main squadron, had the skull and crossbones on the black tails, pinstriped yellow, based off of this one squadron. which was my very first duty station. Now, what I didn't know is that it was already scheduled to be removed. It was going to be ended. But around the time that I joined the Navy, they had found some kind of way to prolong the end, and they needed people. And so, as an undesignated airman, I got sent to that particular squadron. Their goal was to get into an air wing, so they would not have to terminate the squadron. So I was there for about a year, but I remember my first day walking in. As I walked into the hangar decks, you have to go up the ladder there, and then from the second floor, as I turned the corner and I looked down at the hangar decks, they were the F-14s with the skull and crossbones on them. Oh man, I just remember the joy that I felt. I was so ecstatic that I was actually in that squadron. That was the first gift because, like I said, I didn't say this to anybody, but I always wanted to be in that squadron as I was growing up watching the show Robotech. It's VF-84 Jolly Rogers. So the next thing that happened was once it got decommissioned, or just before it got decommissioned, what happened is that they asked me, what A school do you want to go to? And I told them I want to go to A school. And as I was deciding that and telling them that I wanted to go to ETA school, they come back to me and they say, unfortunately, we can't send you to that school. There's already a waiting list of people to go there. And that waiting list is fairly long, so we can't send you there. So they gave me other choices. They said, you can pick other choices. You can put it as your first choice, but make sure you have a second and a third. And so first choice was ETA school. Second choice, I decided, if I can't make it ETA school, I'll just be a personnel man, do my time and get out. And I don't know, as an afterthought, I thought, well, AT is kind of like ET, but it's just airside, so I'll just put that as a third. But I really wanted to be an ET because I figured that was like a stepping stone to becoming a electrical engineer, which is kind of what I wanted, to work with. Electronics tech was really, kind of what I wanted to focus on while I was in the Navy, so that I kind of had a stepping stone going there. So I didn't get it in my dummy orders. You see, there's two sets of orders that they give you. So in my dummy orders, they sent me to my second choice, which was a personnelman school. I said, okay, fine, whatever. But it's your dummy orders. They don't really tell you where you're going. It's just the possibility of where you're going. And usually you get what is on your dummy orders because they usually match your actual orders. But in my case, my dummy order said you're going to go to personnelman school. And so I was preparing for that. I was preparing just to get out, use my GI Bill, and just go become an engineer. When my actual orders come in, it says you're going to ETA school. My counselor, it's basically what they call the lieutenant that was in charge of of all the paperwork there. He says, son, you need to come in here because we got to do some paperwork. What? He goes, you need to re-up. You got to do a 6-year stint. You can't do your 3 years like you think. So you got to re-enlist in order to take this orders. But he wasn't aware of the fact that by re-enlisting, I could have actually gotten the $20,000 bonus. But I wasn't really worried about the bonus. I didn't care about the bonus when I found out. I was just happy that I got to go to ETA school. And that was the second thing. Now, the third thing is this. When I joined, I told my recruiter, I said, look, I want to go around the world. And he says to me, he goes like this. He says, son, there's never going to be a ship going around the world while you're enlisted, much less in your lifetime. Or it was the other way around. No, there's not going to be a ship going around the world in your lifetime, much less while you're enlisted. I said, okay, but I still want to join. I still want to go around the world. I want to see the world. Now, I remember I said around the world, but I was thinking I wanted to see the world, you know. I said, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. I still want to join. So when I went to ETA school, and I graduated from ETA school, there was only one set of orders that went to a ship that was actually going to go around the world. And guess what? Well, it's not going to be a guess because you probably figured it out. I ended up getting the set of orders that took me to the ship that went around the world. So when I left school, I came here to Phoenix and I was here on break, and I left Phoenix going east. I met the ship in Virginia, and we eventually went out to sea, crossed the Atlantic, through the Mediterranean, Suez Canal, into the Persian Gulf, and then we went down towards Australia, rounded the bottom of Australia, and came back up into Hawaii, and from there to San Diego, and once again, I returned to Phoenix. So I left going east, but I came back from the west. I literally went around the world. Now, it didn't impact me right then and there, because it wasn't until I went on my second cruise that I went back out to sea again that I ended up on the fantail of the ship, just before I got out of the Navy, actually. And I was standing there watching the wake as it split the ocean, kind of like a zipper, you know, it looked like a zipper. As I was looking at the rooster tail, which is what basically the water coming up out of the ocean as the props pretty much kick them up. Huge rooster tail on the back of the ship. And then as I'm looking at that, and as I'm looking at the ship unzip the ocean, I started thinking about what's happened in my life for those 6 years, or soon to be 6 years, 5.5 years at the time. I'd gone into the squadron that was the basis for the Skull Squadron in the anime that I had watched and had wanted to be a part of when I was a child. I literally went around the world, which is the second thing that I had mentioned when I went to the recruiter. It was like, I want to go around the world. And then the third thing was going to the ETA school once I had actually made up my mind what I wanted to do and for what purpose. Now, in each case, I was told no. You can't. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Case of the squadron, I got told it's getting decommissioned. There's no way you can get into that squadron. Or basically, They didn't believe that I was getting into that squadron. Then the next thing was, they're like, there's no way you're going around the world, not in your lifetime, not while you're enlisted. And then the third thing was, well, you can't get into the school, the A school, because there's a waiting list, and basically the Navy's not going to put you on that list. You need to pick something else. And in every case, it's exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I got. And when I thought about it, when I was on that fantail thinking about it, I started thinking, there's only one being that could know my heart and could know my desires and could do this for me. Because otherwise, I could think it was coincidence. And if it was just coincidence, God wasn't real, and I couldn't believe that. I just couldn't. So that's how I came to realize God was a personal God, and whether you realize it or not, He works in your life. And you may not see it right then and there. Now, by no means am I a perfect man. I mean, I never thought that I deserved anything that God ever gave me. But I can see that when He gave me these things, He knew where I was and what place I was at. And that by doing this for me, I would know that He was real. And I just hope that my testimony about the gifts that I received, they encourage somebody to realize God is real and God's a personal God, and there's nothing that He can't do. The Bible says, ask, that God waits for us to ask. But a lot of times we just don't have the faith to ask because we don't believe He's going to answer us, or we don't believe He's capable of doing it, or we seek to accomplish it through our own means. And He's real and He's personal, and He wants to do things for us if we let Him.